Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It is Monday, December the 18th. That's right, 2023. We are winding down almost 2024, and the NFL season is almost over with. And John, we had a pretty, I'd say, pretty entertaining weekend of football. There were some very predictably disappointing performances. We're going to get to that here in a moment. The Patriots lost again, which, hey, it is what it is. I'm not happy about them losing, but considering, you're going to end up with a better draft pick, and there are things there that you can see. There's talent, there's an ability, there's an opportunity for them to turn it around. But John, I'm going to start with your guy, Aaron Rodgers. I know he is still your guy. I say your Packers sometimes, and you always kind of bounce back at that. But your guy, Aaron Rodgers, and him getting injured at the beginning of this season was probably the absolute best thing that could have happened to him. And I'm going to tell you why, John. Have you seen the Jets right now? And look, I'm not going to put any sort of necessarily blame on him, but his guys that he advocated for haven't quite done much, and they're part of the problem here. But I saw Zach Wilson look like he got bent over backwards and broken in half. Like this, honestly, John, with or without Aaron Rodgers, I think this would have been a disastrous season for the Jets. And that has many implications on Aaron Rodgers individually and, at the Jets as a team. And quite frankly, I know he got injured, but there's a good chance he might have got injured anyways, given how weak this offensive line is. I'll give you credit, too, because you said before the season that was the biggest weakness for all these AFC East teams, and it certainly is for the Jets because their offensive line has been awful. The team just hasn't they haven't played to the level. Now, again, when you lose your starting Hall of Fame quarterback on the first drive of the season, you get a little deflated. But this would, I think, John, with or without Aaron Rodgers, would have been a disastrous season for the Jets. And if Aaron Rodgers was under center, that does everything negative to his quote unquote legacy. So that's why I'm saying I think this injury, in hindsight, might have been a good thing for Aaron Rodgers, because I don't know if you wanted to see him under center for this team this year or at all, because like I said, I just don't know if it would have gone over too well.
Offensive lines throughout the league are putrid. The Jets is really bad among the putrid offensive lines. I mean, there's probably a half a dozen good offensive lines in the NFL: Philadelphia,
maybe
Detroit, Dallas, San Francisco. I'm trying to think in the AFC. Cleveland has a really good offensive line.
The Chiefs the Chiefs have a really good offensive line. Yeah. Especially the interior. The tackles, leave a lot to be desired, but that interior part of their offensive line you're going to be hard pressed to find a better trio.
Yeah, Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney, they're really strong inside. So obviously the Jets, horrible offensive line. And I thought that from the moment he got traded to the Jets, I'm like, well, they're going to have to really clean up that offensive line, because you got a 40-year-old quarterback who maybe isn't as mobile as he used to be, who likes to hold the ball a little longer than he probably should. And that kind of happened in the first series against Buffalo in week 1. And that led to the Achilles injury. And they're 5-9. I'm thinking if he's quarterback, maybe they're 7-7, maybe 8-6, somewhere around there. I think they beat the Patriots earlier in the season, although the Jets never beat the Patriots.
I was going to say, I don't even know. They could assemble an all-star roster and they may still lose to the Patriots.
It's like a mental block against the Patriots. They see that uniform and they can't win. They'd be better, obviously. I think 7-7, 8-6, but they'd still somewhat be in contention. And their defense is really good, but I think the defense now is just kind of fed up with the offense. And this happens a lot in football, right? This happens. Like one side of the ball is so bad, the other side is really good, and after a while, it's like, oh, enough already. Like even the Patriots defense, which has been really competitive, is like probably getting fed up with the offense, turning the ball over and giving them.
But the big difference is, and this is where I'm going to throw a little praise towards Belichick and everything like that. You're not really seeing it that much. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't seem like there might be tension. Sure. I mean, you look at this Patriots offense, certainly during that stretch where they gave up 26 points in 3 games and didn't win a single one, but when you look at the Jets, you see visible tension. You know what I mean? There's very obvious. There's a very obvious just gripe between the two units. You can see it. Part of that is like, look, I mean, Robert Saleh, he's not Bill Belichick, and again, Belichick commands quite a bit of respect, regardless of what the record is. Robert Saleh, the leash is short. I mean, let's be honest. He's a young, new head coach who hasn't really proven himself in the league. And despite, I mean, everything you can think of being a disaster this year has happened, they've really fumbled how they've dealt with it. Like dealing with Zach Wilson and the backup quarterback and everything that goes along with it outside of just Aaron Rodgers getting injured, they've kind of screwed up. So you look at the situation and you're like, you said it, John. They might be 7-7, 8-6. That'd be massively disappointing if Aaron Rodgers was under center. Wouldn't you be disappointed?
Yeah, I mean, if they're headed to 10-7, then maybe that's not a bad season considering they were 4-13 last year. So I expected them to win the division because I thought Buffalo was going to take a step back, which they have for most of the season. Although now they seem to be peaking at the right time. And Miami, I still think is a fraud. They destroyed the Jets yesterday, but they can't really beat any good teams. And when they get up, they just destroy teams. But when they're in close games, they don't necessarily win them. Yeah, that would have been disappointing. I thought they could win the division. And I think, too, as far as the narrative of Aaron Rodgers is one of the reasons I think he wants to come back, and he's eligible to come off the injured list on Wednesday and maybe play Sunday against Washington or, even one of the final two games. They end the season in Foxborough against the Patriots. That's going to be some sort of accomplishment for him. Like, I'd return quicker than anybody in the history of Achilles injury. That'll be something for his brand, right? Like, he's the anti-science guy. He's got his own way of dealing with things. He was inoculated, not vaccinated. So the whole message can be, look, I take care of myself. And to a degree, too, Brady's kind of like that, too, with his TB12 method. They look, when two guys are accomplished a lot, and obviously Brady more, when you have that much money, you think you know everything, whether it be science and everything else.
And maybe I'm a little bit of a cynic here, but I feel like Aaron Rodgers' motives are far more self-serving, though. First of all, I don't think there's even a remote chance that he steps foot on the football field this season, and I think he knows that. Because first of all,
don't the Jets have to step in and say, no, we have you signed for next year. Let's just remain healthy.
John, it's the Jets.
And be ready.
It's the Jets.
Well, he's run the whole show, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Hackett is his offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
No, you're right. But at some point, doesn't the owner?
Absolutely not. What you think? Woody Johnson's going to step? Like, think about who you're talking about here. You're talking about an organization that's so desperate to be relevant that they're gonna give in to anything Aaron Rodgers says. And I'm not trying to like pile on Rodgers and say, oh, he's just, driving this ship with his ego. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he has a lot of influence. Obviously, they went out, got Randall Cobb, MVS, all these guys. And like I said earlier, they really haven't done anything and have been part of the problem. Nathaniel Hackett, same thing. But Robert Saleh is not going to stand up to him. Woody Johnson, no. Are you kidding me? I mean, Woody Johnson
could, because he is.
He could, but he's not going to, because it's right. Woody Johnson. I mean, do you think that guy has a spine? Like they are so. Because here's the thing, they are committed to Aaron Rodgers next year, whether they want to or not, because they don't have a quarterback. Zach Wilson clearly is not the answer. No one else on that roster is the answer, and the only reason that there's going to be interest in this team is if Aaron Rodgers is out there. So if he says, oh, I'm going to go out there and play this Sunday, they're going to be like, okay, sure. Because it's the only positive thing. But at the end of the day, I think it's a terrible idea because the guy's 40 years old and he's coming off an Achilles injury. And like I said, quite frankly, I don't think he knows. What I'm saying is I don't think he has any intention of stepping on the football field. But even talking about this, John, for the last, month, has kept him front and center in the discussion. And already there's a positive spin to it. So no matter what happens, he's going to come out thinking like, man, this guy tried as hard as he possibly could to come back, but he couldn't. The reality of it is, John, I think there was 0.0 chance that he would ever be able to come back this season from that injury. One, because of the injury, and two, because of his age. Because again, like I said, that just it sounds like the absolute worst idea in the world for him to come back this soon from this injury.
Yeah, especially if you go out to a game and you're playing in inclement weather and you slip, which is always an opportunity to happen. This happened 6 years ago. He suffered a broken collarbone on his throwing shoulder or throwing side against the Minnesota Vikings, and it looked like he was done for the year, had the operation, and he came back prematurely, like played one game, looked okay, and then kind of banged it up again, which is going to happen on a football field when you come back 2 months before you're supposed to. So maybe the guy's just sick-headed that that's what he wants to do. Or again, this is part of my legacy. You know, maybe in the third paragraph of his Wikipedia page, it might be Aaron Rodgers came back from Achilles surgery faster than any other human being ever. Like that might be something that is his calling card.
He's got a lot of space after Super Bowl championships, so there's plenty of space to fill there. Yeah.
Well, he's got the vaccine too.
Oh, that might. Yeah.
Which is pretty interesting. Don't you think Woody Johnson and Aaron Rodgers' conversations about the vaccine must be pretty interesting? I don't know. Johnson & Johnson?
I can
develop one of the vaccines?
I have a feeling it would give me a tension headache. Because I don't know. I think it's a weird marriage to begin with. You know, in hindsight, you kind of looking at it. I just think, look, if he's in there or if he's not, this year would have been a disaster. And if he's in there, John, obviously it looks far worse for his legacy, where he's kind of blameless. Even though again,
he played 4 plays, yeah.
Yeah, well, I do think his guys again are part of the problem, and that's you gotta. If you're the Jets, you got to say you got to put your foot down and be like, hey, look, this is. You're the guy, but, we got to put the right players around, and going out and getting a 67-year-old Randall Cobb is not going to do it. And clearly
having Nathaniel Hackett as your offensive coordinator. And do it. It's amazing he won 2 MVPs, but that guy is his offensive.
Well, because John, I mean, this just comes back to it's not that coaching doesn't matter, but ultimately it's about the players on the field.
Right.
That's why,
the quarterback can cover a lot of sins.
Like when I say, Brady was more important to the Patriots dynasty, that's not a knock on Bill. And again, I've said this 17 million times, so I know people are rolling their eyes when I say it, but eventually it's gonna stick with people that you can believe that Brady was the most responsible for the success of the Patriots over the 20 years. And quite frankly, when you lay out column A and column B from when he was and wasn't there, it seems pretty obvious, John, right? This isn't a hard case to make if you're just looking at the surface evidence. It's a very easy case to make, but the reality of it is it's just about the players on the field. So I don't care about Josh McDaniels or Bill O'Brien or Nathaniel Hackett. I care about Aaron Rodgers and I care about Tom Brady. Those are the guys that make things happen on the field, and that's never been more evident than when we see their success and failures with and without these guys. So, it's to me, it's this isn't going to be an easy fix because there's a lot of things they're going to have to do, improve the offensive line. You're going to have to get some better players, and you're going to have to repair some trust between the coach and some of these players and just the team in general. Because again, like I said, the thing that the Patriots have going for them is I think there are players certainly that are frustrated. There may be players that are frustrated with the quarterback position, but I think for the most part, the guys still kind of buy into what Bill's selling. I don't know if you can say that for Robert Saleh and the Jets. I don't even know if they buy anything.
He's only in his 3rd year, and there's been pushback with Belichick. I mean, we saw after what Jack Jones had the pick 6 on Thursday night, and a bunch of his former teammates were all in support of him. When give him a chance. I mean, how many chances did Bill Belichick have to give Jack Jones?
Well, that's kind of the point. I think some guys they're always going to support their guys, and I get it, but I don't think that necessarily means they're also taking a shot at Belichick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, some guys are just, they're like, okay, we're glad you're getting your opportunity. Like, look, I mean, quite frankly, John, the defensive back room for the Patriots when they're healthy is a pretty deep room. They have a lot of talent. So you know what I mean? It's not like Jack Jones was clearly the clearly the best play. And like, no, I mean, there were some good players on this roster. I mean, part of the reason why I believe, like I said, they can potentially turn it around pretty quickly and be competitive again. So like but Jack Jones also had his issues, here, and I think the Patriots gave him a lot of chances.
Oh,
so
more than I think most teams would.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think a lot of teams would just cut him after the gun charges back in June. I mean, he's had issues in every time zone, depending on where he's playing. So yeah, that was something to look at. But as far as the Jets, I mean, they just can't get out of their own way, and now they're going to have to decide what they want to do. And again, Rodgers has a huge platform. The league is starving for stars, right? Because Brady retired and Rodgers is injured. Now you got a slew of other quarterbacks that are up for the year, whether it's Burrow or Herbert or Cousins or Deshaun Watson. So they're just starving for content. And the guy does provide content because he's kind of out there, right? I mean, he's opinionated about everything, which can be a turnoff, but also can be interesting. And he has an incredible platform because he goes on with McAfee once a week. So he's going on tomorrow. Lord knows what he's going to talk about. He might come out and, support what Trump had to say over the weekend, or he might back Trump what he said over the weekend. Who the hell knows with him? But he also might break news and say, yeah, I'm ready to go on Sunday. I'm cleared medically or cleared myself. And, now you've got the Jets at the forefront of news all week for a team that's 5-9. That's kind of, bizarre. But again, that's what we're in right now.
Yeah. And during that, when you were talking, my favorite nickname that he ever got for anything was Toe Rogan. I don't know why.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It makes me chuckle every time. It's very it's very creative.
He's the middle of three sons. There's an issue with that. I've said this a million times that the family dynamic is a real thing. He's a middle child of three sons, and he doesn't speak to anybody in his family. He craves attention. So,
sure.
Here we are.
Yeah, and well, wait, that's what I said that weeks ago. I said it weeks ago when this first started happening with his injury. I'm like, there's not a chance. There's 0% chance that he's going to come back. This is all for show. And look, I mean, it's good business. I mean, I'm not saying it isn't. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I'm not pretending like this is like some sort of bad no, this is good for his brand. Absolutely. I am not going to sit there and knock him for that. But, like I said, for me, it was pretty clear from the moment that he that you started talking about this that I was like, yeah, no, he's definitely, there's not a chance in the world that he's coming back this season. It's all the thing. So, all right. Anyways, I'm going to ask you something. And I actually tweeted this poll out. I don't know if you saw it or if anyone else saw it, but who was more predictably disappointing this weekend, John? The Cowboys or the Jaguars or both? I mean, were they equally as predictably disappointing? And by that, I mean, there are no two bigger fraud teams, in my opinion, right now that are in contention for, say, the top seed than these two teams in their respective conferences.
I'd say it's the Cowboys, only because they've done this quite a bit. I mean, the Jaguars have only been in discussion for being a good team, the last 2 years. The end of last year, had a nice streak, won the division, won a playoff game, got off to a good start this year. Now they're kind of falling apart, like you said they would. You weren't high on them all year, and now they're tied with the Colts and the Texans for first place in the AFC South. I'd say the Cowboys, because going into this weekend, I felt they had the presumptive MVP in Dak Prescott, and he didn't play well yesterday. So now he's probably third or fourth choice behind Brock Purdy or Lamar Jackson, or the guy who I think I would vote for now is Christian McCaffrey, because I mean the guy just makes that whole offense go. But yeah, it would be Dallas only because you just kind of hope they get over this. If you're a Cowboys fan, if you hate the Cowboys, you just say, "See, I told you so." And I think they're more talented than the Jaguars, and that was just a horrible performance. And they were both playing good teams, right? Like Buffalo seems to be getting their act together at least for now, and they're at home and they needed the win, so they were the more desperate team. Baltimore is better than Jacksonville, but the game was in Jacksonville. Baltimore's offense struggled there, and they just took care of business, both Buffalo and Baltimore. And I do think Buffalo just thoroughly outplayed Dallas, whereas I think Jacksonville kind of gave some opportunities to Baltimore. But I'd say it's Dallas. More predictably, disappointing. Like they did what they do all the time, it seems like.
And look, I mean, this is with all the changes and this crazy season with the MVP race, I mean, Dak Prescott had it. That was his to lose. I mean, that he gave it away almost as quickly as he took the lead. I it's incredible because all he had to do, John, I'm not going to say all he had to do was just exist for 3 weeks. All he had to do was play pretty well, and he kind of had it in the bag because we kind of felt that okay, maybe Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey are kind of taking votes away from each other. Um, Lamar Jackson was still in the mix, and certainly he's still in the mix now. But you looked at it and said, Cowboys, just win out probably, and that MVP is Dak Prescott's, and his legacy changes with or without a Super Bowl because all of a sudden he has an MVP, and that means a lot to people. That's gone, absolutely gone, out the window. You had a chance to go out there and beat a good team that was, they're playing better, John. I mean, that's if you're trying to look ahead to what might happen. And I'm just crazy to think because we had maybe not written the Bills off, but we were certainly down on them. They put together 2 really huge wins late in the season, and we know how that can work sometimes. That can really push them forward. But the opportunity for the Cowboys to make a statement was there, and they didn't even compete, John.
Buffalo ran for over 250 yards. I mean, Josh Allen only threw 15 passes. It looked like the 1976 Steelers out there, the Bills, with their game plan. It was like, they're not going to stop the run. We're going to keep running. And then they put pressure on Prescott. He was off all day. I mean, the other thing I have to look into, and just kind of doing this off the top of my head, when's the last time a team or a player, especially a quarterback, won an MVP without winning his own division? Because right now it's set up for Philadelphia to win the division because if they win tonight, they'll be a game ahead of Dallas. They play the Giants twice down the stretch. So Philadelphia is probably going to win the division. Like, can a player that plays on a team that finishes second in his own division?
Technically,
it probably doesn't happen.
I mean, Peyton Manning and Steve McNair split
the MVP, right? And they were
so
in the same division. Yeah, there you go. That's probably the last time it happened.
Yeah,
even then, that's technicality there.
Yeah.
I think Adrian Peterson in 2012 won the MVP, but I think the Packers won that division. So, but that's a running back. So I'm just thinking a quarterback. So yeah, he really hurt himself yesterday. But I would say, to answer your poll, Ian, I would say the Cowboys, because the Jaguars just don't have the history of this. The Cowboys certainly do. And that's a good poll question. I liked my poll question yesterday, which I got no traction on, which I thought was going to be pretty good. Was like, what's your favorite cutlet? Like, because Tommy Cutlets, and they keep hearing about how his mom makes chicken cutlets, which if you're really Italian, they're not a thing. They're chicken tenders or whatever. Right. It's not a big thing. Chicken cutlets are not an Italian thing. The choices were beef, chicken, pork, or veal. The answer is veal by a landslide. I understand why people don't want to eat veal. I get that. But to me, it's veal followed by pork, followed by beef, then followed by chicken. But I got no traction on that. I was surprised.
See, I go with chicken. I'm a big chicken guy. Like I like my chicken. I like my chicken.
I was going to irritate you and put turkey cutlets on there, but
trust me, that would have come out swimmingly for me because no one wants a turkey cutlet. Trust me, I'm
no,
pretty confident.
Not even me.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm pretty confident in saying that most people aren't even going to go for that one. But yeah, I'd go chicken cutlet for sure.
Yeah.
So,
you young guy, you just don't have the. Yeah.
No, I'm just well. I'm a 12-year-old in a 37-year-old's body. I like barbecue chicken, chicken nuggets, and
exactly pizza, whatever.
Yeah. That's what I eat. That's what I eat. Trust me.
Not a bad choice. I'm right with you. And I'm 60. We're all the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, look, I go to a restaurant. I know what I want. I want the chicken fingers. I can sit here and tell you about chicken fingers from every pretty much big restaurant there is, and I can tell you the pros and cons of each of them. So, you know
I like
what?
them on the bone though. On the bone, much better. Chicken wings on the bone.
Well, for me, those are two different things for me. So, like, of course, I like them both. I mean, I'm not picking one or the other. I'm just saying sometimes there's a time and place for both of them. So I'm talking about like the like your chicken finger dinner, when you go to like
Mhm.
a Chili's or Applebee's or whatever.
The kids menu, right?
I mean, you could. There's an adult version of it too, John. I think it comes with a soda, not a milk or a juice, but it's still good. Whatever. You know what? Don't judge me. When I go out
I'm
to
not.
eat, trust me, I know exactly. I know if I'm going to enjoy my food or not. That's why when people ask me all the time, so why don't you get something different? Because I'm like, you know what? I want to know that I am going to enjoy my food, and I know I'm going to enjoy my chicken fingers with either my honey. And here's the thing: I'm a sauce guy, but I like to mix it up. Sometimes it's honey
Mhm.
mustard. I'm in the mood. Barbecue sauce is always at the top of the list. I'm never going to say no to that. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, if it's a different type, a little sweet and sour goes in the mix. I'm pretty
There you go.
flexible, but I do like my chicken fingers. Anyways, real quick. So the MVP race again, it's Christian McCaffrey or it's really Brock Purdy at this point, and
Mhm.
I think normally I would agree with you that it's probably going to be Christian McCaffrey, but I mean, John, I mean, how can I'm not saying you, but like how can anyone downplay what Brock Purdy is doing right now? Like every week, it's like they keep talking. I mean, they literally had and it drives me nuts. I hate when people push these things. But they had this segment on one of the pregame shows talking about game manager or game changer. I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe we're actually having this conversation. Um, is San Francisco winning games? Yes. Is Brock Purdy having a huge hand in winning those games? Absolutely. Each and every week, he goes out and puts up the numbers. He puts up the performance, and it's like I saw him, in the pocket, get pressure, keep his eyes downfield, and escape the pocket, square up, throw a deep pass that ended up into a touchdown. That's great quarterback play, John. I don't care. I
Mhm.
don't care
Yep.
what you want to call it and who's around him. So it's like it drives me nuts when you know the national media pushes that type of narrative because it cheapens. Because at the end of the day, people are like, oh, they don't even know what a game manager is. Like, John, when people say game manager, they have no idea what they're talking about when they use it to be like in the context of downplaying their performance. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
in theory, every quarterback is a game manager, and you want great quarterbacks to manage the game well. I mean, that's of course, but we know how people use it. It's basically a lesser version of a great quarterback. And that I think it's always driven me nuts primarily because people use it against Tom Brady, and that's just foolish. But you're seeing it more and more when there's really no reason for it because for all the reasons that you're calling Brock Purdy a game manager were the same reasons Patrick Mahomes won the MVP in 2018. So which is it?
Exactly. Yeah. And then again, we all also hear about system quarterbacks. Well, yeah, I think they're all system quarterbacks
Yeah.
because the offensive coordinators have a system to play within. It's not like they go in the huddle, look at their 10 teammates and go, okay, you know what? You go down 10 yards, take a right at the Buick. You go 8 yards, take a left at the fire hydrant. I mean, this isn't sandlot football. Maybe Brett Favre did that because he didn't even know what a nickelback was when he was in his early years with the Packers. But yeah, I mean, everyone has a system, and I always used to push back when people would say Brady's a system quarterback, Montana was a system quarterback. I'm like, well, then use that system. It seems to
Yeah.
work pretty well. You have the great
Yeah.
quarterback to execute all that. So yeah, without question. So look, this offense never looked like that with Garoppolo. Now there is one difference: Christian McCaffrey. Garoppolo never got to play with McCaffrey. And he's a special player. That's why I think right now maybe he's at the forefront of MVP. But you can't take anything away from this young guy. 4 touchdown passes yesterday. His
Again.
passer rating goes in the low 120s.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that's like Aaron Rodgers 2011, 2020 level. Like that's as high as it generally gets.
I'd say
Like
I'd say
158.3
Aaron
is
Rodgers more.
exceptional.
I'd say Aaron Rodgers more 2020, less 2011 because I put more stock in 2011, 2010. In,
Right, right.
you know what I'm saying. See,
Yeah, because
I'm
that was absurd.
throwing
His
I'm
numbers
throwing
that
Aaron
year.
Rodgers some positive things
Yeah,
here too.
you
So
know,
I'm
started
not.
one decade on a high note and started the next decade on a high note and didn't win a Super Bowl either year. But
Yeah.
yeah. Now let me bring this part up too because now we're talking about the two front runners for MVP are probably Purdy and McCaffrey, right? Same
Mhm.
team. we kind of heard about this 99, 2000, and 2001. Remember,
Yeah, Kurt Warner and Marshall Faulk.
In 01, and Marshall Faulk won it in between. Now, Warner, I think, was a little banged up in 2000. So, it was all on Marshall Faulk. I mean, that offense was still great. The defense was god awful that year. I think they went 10-6 and lost in the wild card game to the Saints. So they weren't a great team, but that guy just put up ridiculous numbers. So yeah, that maybe you have a little bit of that, and at some point the voters will go, well, this is really the MVP of the team. Maybe it won't split it so much, depending on that. But those are probably the two front runners right now, with Lamar Jackson having a big game last night on national TV, a standalone game, and then Dak in a big national game not playing well.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't know if there's a strong, in most cases, I felt like, like we talked about before, I feel like they take votes away from each other, but I just don't know if there's a strong enough candidate to do that this year. I mean, again, Lamar Jackson's probably third right now, but I mean, I picked him to win MVP before the season, but I'm not sitting here making a passionate case for it. You know what I mean? Because I look at it and I say, well, I think Purdy or McCaffrey are a better choice right now. And I don't think it should necessarily be a negative for either of them, because like, here's the thing, John. I mean, of course, everyone understands that Christian McCaffrey is a talented player, but has Christian McCaffrey ever played with a quarterback like Brock Purdy?
He did play with Cam when Cam was still pretty good.
But
it wasn't but again,
it's a different. He had a different skill set. Brock Purdy is more of a traditional pocket passer. A guy that minimizes mistakes. Reads progressions well, and generally those are things that benefit running back. So certainly Christian McCaffrey independently is an incredible talent, no doubt about it. But I think they've certainly greatly helped each other because, again, I mean, quarterback play is about consistency and it's about limiting your mistakes. It's not about, throwing far, even though he can. It's about accuracy too. And like I said, I mean, he's got all those check boxes, all those boxes checked. So, it is what it is.
They're also playing with two phenomenal wide receivers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and Brandon Ayuk is their like third or fourth target. And it's like, I mean, he would be easily the number one receiver on the Patriots. So
on a lot of teams, I think. Yeah.
Deebo
Samuel's the most unique wide receiver in the sport, although, AJ Brown's pretty good too. But yeah, they've just got so many weapons, and then they got the best offensive lineman in football, and Trent Williams, I think, still should get maybe a fifth place vote for MVP because he kind of makes the whole thing work. They were 0-3 in games he missed. Yeah. I don't think that's a coincidence.
No,
major
absolutely
coincidence,
not.
As we said on Seinfeld, there are no major coincidences.
I was maybe not pushing for him to be in the MVP conversation, but I understand where you were coming from because, again, we talk about the struggles from the AFC East and it comes back to the offensive line and then, it stems from there. But, San Francisco is doing pretty good with that. So, anyways, tonight we got the Eagles and the Seahawks. The Eagles still in the mix for that number one seed, obviously in the lead in the NFC East, got some help with Dallas losing. But they need a bounce back performance if they want to go into the playoffs and the postseason and kind of with any sort of momentum. They have to win a pretty big game tonight against a pretty solid team. Now, there's questions about Jalen Hurts' health. There's questions about Geno Smith's health. Trust me, I know he's my quarterback in fantasy, and spoiler alert, it's not looking good for me right now. The reality of it is, I think it's obviously not a must win, but I think if the Eagles are going to find, because right now this whole season, we talked about this last year with the Vikings with their point differential. The Eagles have one of the smallest point differentials for a team that has more than 10 wins of any team in history. So we didn't view them in the same light as Minnesota. And maybe that was a mistake. Maybe we said, they just came from the Super Bowl. They're a better team than this. Minnesota, they hadn't done it. And there's always doubts about Kirk Cousins and everything like that. So I think it was easy for us to say they're kind of frauds. I don't know if the Eagles are, but let's just say when you turn to Matt Patricia to call your defensive signals this late in the season, things probably aren't necessarily going as well as you would like. And quite frankly, their biggest weakness all year has been the secondary, and it just isn't getting any better.
No, I mean, it's been a disaster. Anytime they face a really good offense like Dallas last week or San Francisco the week before, I mean, those teams put up as many points as they feel like putting up in a given day. So that's obviously an issue. They lost both coordinators from last year. So, you know, you have to replace them. And the offense hasn't been as potent as it was a year ago. The defense certainly not even close. Last year they had 70 quarterback sacks. They're not even close to that, although that's kind of an abnormal number. Not going to generally do that back-to-back years. Yeah, no, this is a big game for Philadelphia because, you know, you can kind of secure first place in the NFC East, which means you'll be the number 2 seed, although, you know, Detroit's right behind you for the number 2 seed, but you want to get that part done so that at least you get 1, maybe 2 home playoff games. That's the idea, and then you don't have to face San Francisco till the NFC Championship game, and good luck with that. But yeah, there's a big game for Philadelphia. I expect a high-scoring game, even if Hurts doesn't play. I know Marcus Mariota is going to step in, and you know he's okay. But yeah, Hurts is flown on a separate jet because he's ill, so they want to keep him close to the players. Let's hope we get to see him tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, fortunately, like I said, even going into the week, and I apologize for the noise. There's some construction going on here at the FPC studios down here in St. Petersburg. I don't know if you guys can hear it over the microphone, but I can hear it certainly. Yeah, look, I mean, this is a team that it just is desperate for a big win. And I know it's not going to be against, you know, some of the elite teams, but the Seahawks are good enough at least. And if you have to go with Marcus Mariota, well, you better get back to your roots, and that is running the football. And that's something they just haven't really done well at all this year. Part of that, John, is, surprise, surprise, is some limitations in the offensive line department, you know, seems to be a theme of the show today. But yeah, so for the Eagles, look, I think they're going to win tonight. I don't think it's going to be a convincing win. I think it's going to be kind of ugly, and you're still going to have a lot of question marks about this team. But, you know, all it takes, John, is as long as they start playing well come day one of the postseason, I guess it's all moot. But, you know, you would like to see a little bit more out of this team, you know, as we get closer and closer to the middle of January.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time to start playing better. You can look at a team like Buffalo, which I think kind of got a get-right game, even though they lost at Philadelphia. They were impressive in a loss. I mean, I know that isn't something you normally say, but they did a lot of good things against Philadelphia, lost in overtime, but then they beat Kansas City and Dallas back-to-back weeks and looked really good doing it. So Philadelphia, you want to go out to the West Coast. The game was flexed from Sunday to Monday. The quarterback's got whatever, a virus, whatever the case may be. You hope he's able to play. Mariota, again, is a solid quarterback. Not going to do the tush-push quite as well with Marcus Mariota, who's more of a slender guy than Jalen Hurts, who, you know, leg presses and does squats with the offensive line. And I think he's the strongest quarterback in the league. But I think Philadelphia will be okay. And I think it'll be a high-scoring game, but it'll be interesting to see what Philly's defense does with Matt Patricia calling plays. Yeah,
well, that's what I'm saying. It can't be going well if you're turning to Matt Patricia this late in the season. So, all right, that's going to do it for us here today. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about Monday Night Football and some more of the other things that happened over the weekend, because there's some other interesting things. But we're out of time here, so we're gonna have to say goodbye for the day. So, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.